this down. Y'all good?
Yep.
Hello, everyone. I think I speak a lot clearer when I have this off. My name is Tanya Long. Welcome to the Wyland Park Civic Association meeting for October. I'd like to welcome everyone here in the park as well. It's good to see you all. Um, it's a beautiful day out here. It's been a lovely day all day. I'm so happy that we were able to meet this probably last time for the Civic outside. So most likely we will be on Zoom going forward and we'll all be on Zoom. So those of you that are on Zoom, thank you. And we do have a guest, Judge Gina Russo, who I met today. She's gonna be our guest today on
She's
Zoom,
waving.
and she'll have a presentation. Is she waving?
Yeah, she's
Hey,
waving.
Gina. I actually met her today. I voted, y'all. I lost my little voting thing, but I voted, and I met Judge Russo while I was walking through the very quick moving line. So if you are in any way thinking about early voting, go for it. It's a very, very long line. You'll be so intimidated because I hate lines more than anything in this whole world. I have been known to pay people to not stand in line. Is that a bad thing?
I've
It's
heard
true.
most people that have early voted,
Goes
it's been
really
less than an
quickly.
hour
It is less than an hour.
generally.
Ashley Martin, who is here and will be doing a presentation today, also encouraged me because she says it went really quickly, and I believe everything she says. And it did. So my son, myself, and my little granddaughter, we voted. 3 generations of us voted. Okay, the baby really didn't vote, but she was cute. Okay, so having said that, I'm just gonna go around really quickly and let everyone say hello, including those on Zoom. So I'm gonna start with Chris here. He can say hello, and then we'll just do a round robin. And for a really quick icebreaker, just say best autumn tradition.
I'm Chris Michiki. I'm the treasurer of the Civic. Thanks everyone for attending. My full hobby, I guess, or
Best autumn
best autumn
thing to do.
What do you
do in autumn?
I like going to the Lynn Fruit Farm over in Tasco. And go pick apples.
Okay.
Oh, look at this.
Yeah.
Stage. I'm Ashley Martin, and I'm a mom of 3 little kiddos. So usually fall is filled mostly with school and school field trips to pumpkin patches and Halloween. So, and Halloween in our neighborhood over the past several years has become like a bigger thing, which is really fun. So,
Right.
Yeah, when I moved here, just a couple kids.
I know,
I'm
right?
hoping this year's a good year.
Hi, everybody. I'm Susan Colbert. I'm the OSU Extension Program Director here in Wyland Park and throughout Franklin County. And my favorite autumn activity is taking long walks in the park. So,
Hey guys, I'm Bridget Tharp. I'm the Vice President of the Civic, and handing out Halloween candy is definitely my favorite thing to do in the fall. We had maybe 10 trick-or-treaters last year and a bunch of dogs visiting, and one little girl got knocked over by the biggest dog that was visiting, so we're not going to do that again this year.
Fewer dogs.
hi, everybody. I'm Laura Bidwai. I live on Hamlet Street. And I think trick or treat night is kind of my favorite because after a while in the neighborhood, it's fun to see more kids some years, fewer kids other years. And already my neighbors and I are starting to talk about, well, how are we really going to do it? You know, like one neighbor's going to make little bags, and I'm trying to figure out some type of slingshot.
Oh, that would be so fun. Kids will love that.
That's the fun part.
Okay, then. Can you do the speaker view?
What's that?
In speaker view.
Is there anybody on the...
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to ask the people on Zoom now, and I'll start with I guess Donna. Hi, Donna. Are you on there? Can you introduce yourself and tell us your favorite fall activity?
I'm sorry. I had myself on mute. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Okay. My name's Donna
we can.
Macklener, and I live on the corner of North 6th Street and 8th Avenue. And I think in the fall, my favorite thing to do is to make apple pie.
Ms.
Dorinda.
Are you
My
there?
name is Dorinda
Hello.
Garrett. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Dorinda Garrett. I am assistant to Pastor Roby, and I will also be speaking for Pastor Roby, who's a little bit under the weather. He has a infection, so his breathing's a little labored. So, and my favorite thing would be to sit on the porch.
All
That's
right.
good to hear.
It sounds like a lovely thing to do. Next.
How about Robert Paletto?
Hi, everyone. My name is Rob. I haven't had a Halloween in this neighborhood yet, but in my old neighborhood, one of my favorite things, I enjoyed handing out candy on Halloween. I love seeing all the little kids in their costumes, even sometimes some of the older kids in their costumes. Thanks.
Thank you.
Who do we have on the phone?
This is Matt and Tyler. We were on a walk and we forgot that this was happening right now. So we called in. You weren't supposed to tell them that. Our favorite thing
Thanks for calling in.
is, I don't know, probably decorating the house, which looks ridiculous if you want to come by and look at it. Ridiculously good.
Oh,
You guys always have the best decorations for all the various seasons, so I'll have to definitely stop over.
I will too. Absolutely.
Yes, please.
Absolutely. Okay, next.
Let's see here.
Hey, Georgina.
How about Ms. Brandon?
Hi, everyone. My name's Sarah Brandon, and I am the bailiff to Judge Gina Russo. I'm here to help her present our PowerPoint tonight and discuss our courtroom with you, which we are so excited about. I would say my favorite fall activities are pumpkin carving with my kids. We are just now empty nesters, but they're still always going to be my kids. And anything pumpkin to eat or drink. So pumpkin bread and definitely some Starbucks with some pumpkin flavor in it. That's me. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Judge?
Ms. Judge Russo?
Well, hello. My name is Judge Gina Russo. I want to thank everyone for having us here tonight, the Wineland Park Civic Association. I'm excited to be here. We had to continue the last time I was supposed to meet and talk with you all because we were actually in trial at the time. So I'm grateful to be here. Thank you for having us. My favorite autumn activity has got to be walking my dog when the leaves are changing. I live on the south side of Columbus, so it's beautiful down here when the leaves are changing, and so I love to walk her around the neighborhood. Again, thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Thank you. And we have one more person, Georgina Stevenson. We're saying our name and our favorite autumn activity. You can stand. I think where I was standing.
Hi, I'm Georgina Stevenson. My favorite fall activity is anything. I'm enjoying the weather right now. This has lasted, it's so nice for the end of October. But talking about pumpkin taste, I love pumpkin cream cheese. And I love that on bagels during the fall.
That sounds good. You're making me hungry. Okay, awesome. Well, we're going to just jump right in because it's a fairly short agenda, but packed because we may have quite a bit of discussion. But Judge Russo, I don't know if you got my message, but we do have one presentation ahead of you, and that's Ashley Martin. Due to the chaotic back and forth activity of Columbus Public Schools. Some of the moms are really going crazy, some dads with the school stuff. So Ashley Martin is a member of the PTO here at Wyland Park. I just wanted her to talk about what they're doing, what's going on, and if she has any kind of input or suggestions and or feelings about how everything is going. You know, school's been pushed back. So I would love to hear what she has to say about that and hopefully encourage us all.
All right, so the PTO at Wyland Park Elementary has been around just for a few years now. We're still a pretty new organization. This started probably 3 or 4 years ago. We had regular parents meeting and it involved, and we ended up doing a fundraiser or two and realized that if you're just a group of parents fundraising for a school within Columbus City Schools and don't have a separate organization, all of your funds kind of just go to the general pot of money. And we didn't really like that we were raising money that was just going to the general budget for the district. So we decided to start a PTO as a way to have a little bit more control over those funds staying actually at our school and meeting the needs that parents and families identified as needing met. So the PTO has been in limbo for a few years, or for the past year or two. We had some leadership transition out as kids either grew out of the elementary school ages or several kids, families transitioned out of the school to other schools in the district. So we're kind of in a rebuilding space, and then COVID came and kind of all plans have hit the fan. So we're still trying to figure out as a PTO right now what's like our role and how do we engage with parents and try and help support them in this space. So we are regularly in conversations with the principal and talking about kind of staff needs and what we can kind of rally the community to help meet needs. And as we get feedback from parents about things they need, we pass that along to teachers, principals, and like try and brainstorm ideas of how we can kind of like figure out some of those problems and share knowledge. So the biggest thing that we've done this year so far is doing like a school supply drive for the school. So teachers and the principal sent us a wish list of a ton of items, and we were able to get that out via Facebook. And neighbors, particularly in Wyland Park and Italian Village, really stepped up and bought so much. Hey guys, hey, you guys can do that over there, okay? It really met a lot of needs. And like, we're so generous in buying supplies for the kids. I mean, the school was almost overwhelmed with all of the supplies that they had come in at the beginning of the year. For those of you who haven't been able to keep up with all the moving timetables of school and everything, Columbus City Schools had originally planned to go into a hybrid model at the end of October. They bumped that up to October 19th. Then they bumped it back to November 2nd. And then they just announced last week that the earliest that hybrid will start will be January 15th. So parents are all still trying to figure out how to make that work. And teachers are also recognizing now that we're going to be in this model at least for a few more months. And at this point, no one feels super hopeful that we will ever actually go back in person this school year. So teachers have started reaching out again in the past few days saying like, oh, here are some additional items that I think would be helpful, or I need a fill up of these items that I can deliver to my students and their homes. So probably in the next couple weeks, we will be kind of updating that Amazon wish list and putting that out to the neighborhood. And that'll probably be the biggest way that people in the neighborhood and other people will be able to support the school right now. As we like figure out what's going on and what would be helpful, we'll absolutely post that on the Civic Association's Facebook group. There is a private Facebook group for the PTO if that's open for neighborhood members, community members to join if you want more regular updates. we ask that you, like, if you're just a community member, maybe be in that space more to listen instead of, posting a ton, because we want parents to be able to have a space that's primarily for them. But it's Wineland Park PTO on Facebook, so you guys can join that if you want more regular updates. And I think that's everything.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Ashley. I appreciate that. And I hope that you all got some good information there that you can take to other residents in the community or any parents that you see that are struggling with trying to help figure this out. Okay. So next we are going to ask Judge Russo to begin her presentation. Did you turn over Chris is going to turn over the hosting to you so you may share your presentation and we'll all be a captive audience here.
Do you want me to have, is it Sarah going to demonstrate?
Yeah, is there any way you can turn it around?
It's going to be Judge Gina Russo. I
No,
think
go
I
ahead.
can. I think I can share.
I can make you the.
But you can't talk to me. Okay.
Are you able to see this?
Yep, we can see.
Okay, you can see my presentation here.
Yes.
Okay.
Give me one.
All right. Well, thank you again, everybody, for having us. My name is Judge Gina Russo, and Sarah Brandon is here along with me. I have been a judge on the Court of Common Pleas since March of 2019. Prior to taking the bench, I had experience both as a civil litigation associate. I worked at the Voorhees Law Firm for 10 years, where I tried all types of different civil litigation. But one of those cases that I tried, which was near and dear to my heart, was a case that I defended very important constitutional rights all the way up to the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, which is just one court below our Supreme Court of the United States. It was then that I found my calling to become a public servant. So I actually became an assistant prosecuting attorney, and I did that work for 7 years. Once I was working as an assistant prosecuting attorney for 7 years. The governor appointed me as a judge in March of 2019. I now sit as a judge on a combined docket of both civil and criminal cases. So I come from a very good background in terms of the types of cases that I'm dealing with, or the types of cases that I previously litigated in both those roles. When I became a judge, it was very important to myself and Sarah to reach out to various members in our community, all different types of leaders, religious leaders, civic leaders, educational leaders, any leader in community that we could sit down and talk with and get to know their membership, get to know the issues that they face, the challenges, the struggles, and the hardships, because I realize that it's my job to make very many important decisions that impact people's lives greatly. And if I'm going to do that, then I need to know my community members. I need to know who they are and the challenges they face. And that's how we met Pastor Roby. We sent out these letters, and he was one of the individuals who graciously responded. And we had a Zoom call, and we kind of discussed with him what our judicial philosophy is in our courtroom, how we want to connect with members of the community by kind of explaining to them an overview, a bird's eye overview of what happens in the court system, so that if they're ever faced with it, they're more comfortable, they've heard it, they're familiar with it, they know a judge, they can put a face with a name, and then some of the resources that we can offer and that we can provide the community. So often, so many people are afraid of the court system or have a very distant or disdain for the court system, because a lot of people view it as punitive in nature. And I wanted to start the conversation and develop the narrative that it doesn't necessarily always have to be that way. A good judge should be identifying the needs of the people that come before him or her and try to find ways to help that person improve their lives, get themselves back on track, and to continue with a healthy, productive lifestyle. So that's what we'd like to do. We just have a very quick PowerPoint here. Sarah helped me with this, and if you have any questions, I do like a dialogue. So if you want to put them in the chat and we can answer any questions, I'd be happy to do that as well. The overview of the criminal justice system from the common pleas court side, you'll see that their arraignment is on top here. That is when a person is first charged with a crime. They'll go in front of an arraignment court to be read the charges he or she is being charged with. That judge in Franklin County, it starts in the municipal court, and that judge will set a bond. If it's going to become a felony level offense, that will have to proceed before the grand jury before it becomes a felony, because in Ohio, in order to be charged with the felony, it has to be indicted by a grand jury. A grand jury has to hear that first. If it is then indicted, there will be a formal indictment handed down, and then you're arraigned for the second time in front of the felony court, which I preside over. I'm one of 17 judges that preside over a felony docket in common pleas. That judge can then set a bond or modify the bond once you're over in felony court. And again, this is just a broad-based overview, just so we can kind of get a working understanding about how the court system works. Once that case is arraigned and there's a bond set, when it becomes a felony level offense, we have here first date, which means that'll be your first court date. The person can pursue a competency, which means we evaluate that person to determine whether or not he or she is competent to stand trial. And that's not in every case. That's where their attorney raises the issue and wants to have that examined. The other thing that's unique to felony court, and I believe they do have this in misdemeanor court as well, but in our court, if it's a lower level first-time offender, that person can apply for a diversion program. A diversion program is a program where you'll be asked to satisfy some conditions, such as if there's restitution to be repaid to a victim, maybe there'll be community service. But it's lower level offenses, and if you successfully complete that diversion program, then you don't get a conviction on your record. And not many people know about the diversion program, and it's a very good program, particularly, you know, if it's a lower level non-offensive violence and it's a first-time offender. The other thing that can happen after the first court date or at the first court date is you can apply for intervention in lieu of conviction, which is a program if the person is struggling with mental health and or alcohol and drug substance abuse issues. We will have that person evaluated and determine whether or not the felony level charge was as a result of those issues. Because if it was, then what we do is we put that person in a program with several conditions to, again, address those issues, target the mental health and target the alcohol and drug. And if they satisfy those conditions, again, the plea is not entered and there's no conviction as a result of that. So those are two types of programs in the court system that people don't always know that are available to them that we like to advise people of. The traditional route after the first court date would either be a plea or a trial. Both of these things, of course, if you went to trial, you could be found not guilty and then the case is done. But if you take it to trial and you're found guilty, or if you plead and you're found guilty, then there's a couple of tracks here as well. The judge will then be required to do the sentencing phase after a plea or after a trial. And the two traditional sentencing routes are either probation or prison. And if you do go to prison, then you're available, judicial release may be available to you. But we really want to focus on the probation, which in felony court we refer to as community control. There's a lot of available resources that the judge may implement if he or she and in my case, she decides to put somebody on a community control. And I can tell you from now sitting on the bench for almost 2 years, I am a judge that will continue to work with somebody to identify their problem areas and exhaust every treatment available remedy to me before I'll consider any type of incarceration, particularly if it's not a higher level offense where somebody is in harm's way. So what we wanted to talk about tonight were that probation prong. If we do decide then that community control is the best fit for a person. What we're trying to achieve is finding ways to prevent recidivism so that that person gets onto a better track into a more healthy and productive lifestyle, to find the best programming for each individual need, and to partner with community leaders and outreach organizations to mentor, to address the needs, and for continued accountability. So there's a couple of things that we can do on the community control track. If this is a person that is really struggling with alcohol and drug abuse, we have a chemical dependency docket where that will be an intensive type supervision. And the chemical dependency probation officers are skilled in supervising individuals with alcohol and drug and substance abuse issues. Now, these are usually higher risk to continue on a path of addiction. When they are placed on a chemical dependency caseload, there is an assessment. There will be a treatment plan, and then of course that person will undergo random urine screen so that we can continue to monitor their non-use of controlled substances. We also have mental health, a specialty docket that's devoted to mental health, and I'll talk a little bit about mental health in a moment, but we do have a specialized docket for mental health issues. This could be probation officers will then work closely with the individuals and link them with several organizations within Columbus. So whether it's Southeast, Northwest, we have a bunch of other community organization and outreach programs that will specialize in mental health counseling. We have domestic violence specialty dockets where these officers work to prevent violence. This will be anger management counseling. And then, of course, we talk about family planning on that docket and reuniting with the family. In community control, we're also able to offer employment services. So offenders can receive assistance in filling out job applications, preparing a resume. They're educated on how to discuss a prior felony conviction. They're linked with valuable resources in the community to address their specific needs. I want to talk here just a moment because it's kind of a separate issue. It's not necessarily community control, but a couple of other things that I am working on as a judge on the common pleas are bringing a common pleas presence to expungement clinics. Expungement is very important for our community. Expungement is after you receive a criminal conviction, there are ways that you can get that conviction expunged. Most of those clinics are held by the municipal court, and most of the municipal court, they deal with misdemeanors. This year, I've tried to bring a common pleas presence to those expungement clinics to address expunging felony convictions off your record as well, which are just a little bit more rigorous. For a misdemeanor conviction, you have to wait 1 year after the end of the conviction until all the conditions are satisfied. And in a felony type situation, you have to wait 3. There's also other outstanding requirements, but I'm trying to make sure that the common pleas judges have a presence at those. The other thing that I think is important that I like to talk about when I bring up the employment services is we have a tool available to us as common pleas judges that's called a CQE. It's a Certificate of Qualified Employment. So if you do have a felony conviction on your record and you're unable to get it expunged for some reason, whether you have too many of them or they're of a certain nature and they're not expungible offenses, there's another tool that's available to individuals, and that's called a CQE for short. And the judge gets an application from someone who wants to seek a professional license to go to work. So whether it's a accountant license or a tax preparation license, but he or she is unable to do that because of their felony convictions, we're able to issue the CQE in that regard. Other conditions of community control and other services that we can do, a couple of things that you might see if you're on community control is we may order community service, or if the person does become a danger, a house arrest type situation. CBCF is available to us. CBCF stands for Community-Based Correctional Facility, and this is a minimum security correctional facility that provides structure, greater structure. So if a person is in need of greater structure, say they're really struggling with alcohol and drug addictions and or domestic violence even, and they need the greater guidance and structure, CBCF is available to us, and they have wonderful programs within their organization to help people as well. They have cognitive behavioral therapy in there. They offer GED services, successful ways to integrate or re-enter society, and it's just a wonderful program. Other community partners that we partner with is Alvis House. Alvis House is a halfway house that provides services to help offenders reintegrate into society and avoid future crimes. So they really focus on lessening recidivism. They too offer cognitive behavioral treatment, chemical dependency treatment, workforce development, case management, housing assistance, and links to other community services. Power Program is a program that is administered through the Alvis House, and this is a holistic evidence-based treatment program that mainly targets opiates and more upper level or more addictive type controlled substances. That Power Program is a residential program, but it is specifically targeted to breaking the chain of addiction to opiates. House of Hope is another alcohol and drug or controlled substances addiction program, offers residential program for men and outpatient services for men and women. House of Hope is a community favorite because they do provide individual counseling, anger and stress management, healthy living skills, exercise and wellness. They do have the 12-step linkage, and they can also link with mental health therapy and treatment as well. Mary Haven is another community partner that is specifically geared towards alcohol and drug addiction and provides a lot of therapies and counseling. And Mary Haven is a residential program as well. Amethyst is another alcohol and drug and controlled substance abuse program. It is also run by Alvis House. They do both traditional and intensive outpatient treatment for addiction. They provide supportive housing, medical services, mental health, and trauma treatment. I like Amethyst too because they also provide the family services and job readiness and placement. Community for New Directions also offers comprehensive substance abuse treatment and mental health treatment programs. They offer a variety of treatment options, including the medication-assisted treatment, the intensive outpatient programs, and individual counseling. So as you can see, we have a number of community partners available at our fingertips. And what I like to say is when the court places somebody on community control, what our first step is getting a thorough evaluation and assessment of that individual to target what the needs are. And then from there, we can link to any one of these community partners to better address those issues. There's also the Afrocentric Personal Development Shop. This is behavioral health care center specializing in prevention, treatment, and recovery of substance abuse and domestic violence intervention education. This last one on here is the Reeve Avenue Center, and it's not necessarily in and of itself a community partner, but we add this here because Sarah and I started to volunteer at the Reeve Avenue Center this year, and we love it because it houses many community outreach programs under one roof. And when we started to volunteer, we started grabbing every pamphlet that we could, because again, as my job as a judge is to make sure that I'm aware of all of these resources and all of these outreach organizations so that I can pass that on. I can refer, if not order, that people undergo these or link to these very important and necessary and helpful resources. So I like to add that there just because they're almost a one-stop shop. You can go to the Reeve Avenue Center and pretty much find the resource that you need. So our goal, as I mentioned, is to continue to meet with community leaders, to continue to kind of explain what happens at the court system, to also demonstrate that there's more that we can do to help people, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a scary place that people are afraid of, because we really are attempting to improve lives while keeping our community safe. And with that, I guess I'll tell you that the other thing that I'm trying to do is, I was just going to stop sharing here. I've started to work the process now where hopefully one day we will bring a specialized mental health docket to Franklin County Common Pleas. We don't have one right now. I've started the process of looking into what that would look like and how we could structure that. If you're familiar with specialty dockets, drug specialty dockets, there's a veterans docket, there's a catch court over in the municipal side. But what I'd like to do and what I'm focusing on in the future is bringing a specialty docket that would address mental health issues in our criminal justice system. So thank you for being here and allowing me to explain our role and what we do. I probably went over my time. But are there any questions that I might be able to answer?
Judge Russo, I really thank you. That was very enlightening and informative. I was wondering if your presentation was available for us to get email.
I'm going to put this.
Yeah, of course, we can do that. In fact, Sarah asked me to do that beforehand, and we didn't do it, so I would be happy to do that.
Well, Chris just informed me that this is also going to be recorded, but I don't know if you can print off of that. So
if you want to send us maybe like a PDF file or the PowerPoint file, we'll post it on our website or distribute people via email.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of important news that you have there and information that some of the residents of this community may not be aware of, and it would, greatly benefit them and would certainly help stop the recidivism that occurs within the area. So,
yeah, well, I appreciate that.
Columbus, really, if everyone were to take advantage of it. So,
okay, great. I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, great. All right. Anybody else have any other questions for Judge Russo? It was also good to meet you at the polls today.
Yes, it was. It was. And if you haven't, go vote. There's a lot of enthusiasm out there, and it's great to see. So, and it was wonderful to meet you.
You too. Okay, next we're gonna have Laura. They will all come up and talk to us about her experience with the housing. Oh, you okay?
Should I just sit here or something?
Yeah, it's sort of dark. So I don't know
Yeah,
if
it's kind of
people
dark. I
see you.
don't know if you can see her, but kind of. We have a beautiful backdrop back here. Kind of looks like a screensaver.
I can see you.
Yeah, you might see your shadow, but we have a beautiful backdrop.
I can almost see my notes.
Yeah.
The reason that I wanted to talk to everybody, everybody including us too.
You need a flashlight?
No, I think it's okay. Is that we got confirmation a couple weeks ago that Community Properties of Ohio, which owns the building that used to be the D&J carryout, plans or intends to demolish that building. And I launched into this subject not wanting to paint CPO as a villain because they're a great neighbor in every respect. And I think everyone would agree that this kind of commercial property is a hard thing to figure out what to do with. It was bought by Campus Partners. The business was bought by Campus Partners in order to try to alleviate some problems that were happening in not just that carry out, but several in the community. Campus Partners turned the property over to Community Properties in Ohio with the hopes that CPO would be able to come up with another use for that property. That was 5 years ago. We haven't heard any viable plans from CPO, and now they say that the condition of the building is bad enough that they don't see a reason to keep it. We've talked a lot in the housing committee about demolition and preservation of the neighborhood over the years, and I personally, and some folks on the committee, really hate to see buildings torn down because Columbus in general doesn't have a lot of historic architecture left because we kind of like to tear things down in Columbus. But I wanted to kind of bring this topic to a larger group of people to make sure that, just to find out if generally folks feel that it would be worth trying to do more advocacy about this, or whether everyone sees the trade-off of losing that building for something else as something that's worthwhile. But I think I wanted to narrate my thought process just briefly in support of keeping the building. And then just open it up for a minute to see if people have other thoughts, because I really would like to see what the feelings are. Point number one is that when you think about small little commercial buildings like this, there aren't a lot like them left in the near north side. They fit into the size of the houses all around them. They've been a really integrated part of the community for a long time. To lose them is a loss. That kind of small scale space is cheaper for smaller businesses or businesses that aren't chains. And in the case of the D&J, for good or for bad, it's a kind of iconic piece of the history of Wineland Park. And when you think about what people tell stories about Wineland Park, the D&J figures in a lot of those stories. I think I won't even say disappointing. I think you can observe the fact that in 5 years, CPO hasn't been able to find a sustainable, viable plan to reuse that property. I'm not sure if that means we should expect that 5 more years of the ownership would produce new plans. It may be that that's not a good fit for them to have. I have to say that it's disappointing that this is not the first property that's been bought on behalf of the neighborhood. I'm making air quotes in the dark. They buy a property and say they're keeping it for us to use, and then it turns out later that they haven't maintained it at all. They haven't planned at all to fix anything that might have been a small problem when they bought it. And 5 or 10 years later, they say, oh, it's in terrible condition. We can't keep this. That's not what I consider stewardship on the part of our partner organizations in the neighborhood. It's just a disappointment to buy something and say you're doing it for us and then let it kind of fall down. And I think that there's kind of an assumption. I feel that I hear often an assumption that just because a building isn't a mansion or isn't a giant courthouse or something, that it's not valuable to the people who have lived around that building. So I think it's valuable to keep things that are small and modest because they're important in our communities too. And I think our kids and grandkids deserve to get to see some of the things that people grew up with into the future. So that's kind of my line of thinking about it. I certainly understand that CPO isn't the kind of organization that has extra money to spend on anything. They feel that they have a more important mission to do with the funds that they have. I'm sure this building wasn't in perfect condition when they got it. However, we've asked for 5 years now for them to share with us the details that they have about the condition, and they've never told us anything. And we've asked literally over and over again. So we don't have any way of knowing how bad it is. They're not giving us that information. So maybe I've talked long enough. I don't want people to feel just because I feel strongly on one side that I don't see that other people feel differently. And I really would like to hear what other people think. I mean, we could start with the people here because I can see them better.
I know we had asked for it to be made to a laundromat years ago when it first came up, which would have certainly kept the original design, and it was a much needed business in the community for so many parents who don't have washers and dryers, or even people who need heavy duty big washers and dryers for bedding or whatever they would need big washers and dryers for. But that's what we had originally asked for, and it never happened. I had heard that it was going to be used for something else and that they had completely planned on renovating it. So at that time, I really didn't think of it one way or the other. I know the structure of it would definitely change. So that's my opinion.
The question I have is, have we communicated to them that we are disappointed, and have they responded with?
Yes, we communicated that when we talked about this a couple weeks ago at the housing committee, that several people there building, and the questions that came out of that were, could you show us the engineering reports or whatever, help us understand the condition? Do you have any plans for redevelopment at this time? And what's your timeline for doing the demolition? And the response that we got back was, no, they aren't going to share any information about the conditions, that they hope to have the building demolished by the end of the year, and they have no plans.
Would they consider, if they're going to just demolish it and have no plans to do anything with it, would they consider selling to someone that might be interested in
talk about
saving it?
House.
That was a rumor that we heard, and I think when I heard that rumor, it was also with the understanding that wouldn't use the building that was there, that would have been a demolition. And that was probably 3 or 4 months ago now, and I don't know if that has stalled out. Again, we kind of feel like, from my point of view, it's a little disappointing to have a very active housing and use committee and have a partner who won't really talk to us about plans, even as we're thinking about them. But that's my point.
I can speak to it with some perspective and insight that I've shared. So, and I can share both from my perspective as a resident and also my role at Columbus Foundation and the investments we've made in the neighborhood and in this particular property to actually to help save the building. We had made a capital grant of a significant contribution a couple of years ago, and it was the intention at that time that it would help not only preserve the building, but give it an opportunity to be put to community use, which was the whole reason that it was put into CPO's hands in the first place. And that's, to kind of speak to your question, Chris, I think that's one of the reasons why it likely wouldn't be just sold to a developer, because while as a commercial property, it is not necessarily in the wheelhouse of the CPO. I recognize it's kind of a square peg in a round hole in that sense, because they didn't house it. They are uniquely positioned more than any other neighborhood organization to make sure that it is used for a community purpose. And so that's kind of the rationale. I toured the building probably two and a half years ago when we were in the process of evaluating, reviewing that investment. And at that time, I had great concern for the structural integrity. There was in the basement and in the foundation, a lot of mold, a lot of moisture, and a lot of decay. Prior to CPO taking over the building, someone had essentially tried to create a makeshift sunroom in the building. That was something that over time, even by then, had caused some pretty significant internal structural damage because of water coming in. Now, from my understanding, CPO has made repairs and investments to try and keep the building intact the way it was as they acquired it, while trying to find options that some of which have been mentioned here to explore for a community purpose. And despite that effort, and despite the things that they've done to shore up what they could, even while fundraising, like I said, to raise dollars to rehab the building, which was a plan even as of a year ago with those funds, the building has gone into further decay, such that they feel, and in fact, they were concerned in the last few months, because there were going to be some inspections that were taking place, that they weren't even going to be able to get the building insured. Okay, so I think that, and to be candid, they also had a staff member of CPO who fell through some stairs, was not seriously injured, but was injured in the process. I don't know what all Chad from CPO is sharing. I'm sharing some of this just because I think it's important to have more of that context to really understand not only the intentions with the structure, the efforts that have been made to get in position to rehab the structure, but also the efforts to make it a viable community structure as well. And that's really, from everything we've heard, and we're in the process, by the way, of working with them to reallocate those grant dollars, because we don't want to see those dollars being used for demolition. So hopefully that gives some extra context. I haven't been in the building recently, but I know from some of the assessments that despite their best efforts, it's only gotten worse as a structure. We know they've done a good job cleaning up graffiti every time it's happened. They've, within hours, managed that so that would become a bigger community issue. And then lastly, I would just say that when the building was given to CPO, it was almost a century old. It's almost a century old, right? And in the years of all as a building prior to that, had a lot to do with the condition that it was in when they got it. The other thing that's happened in the last couple of years is a commercial property study was done in conjunction with the Housing Committee, Housing and Land Use Committee. And that particular building and intersection was deemed, as a result of that study, as a really challenging commercial structure from a business perspective. Like, aside, structural integrity aside, because it's between two traffic signals, because it's at the corner of two-way streets, and because two one-way streets, and because it's got very little parking. And that actually gets to, as a building, it's a relic of a time and architecture that we all might really value. It also happens to be a relic of a commercial era that unfortunately we've lost as well. And I know we regained some population in the neighborhood in recent years, but we're still not up to half of what this neighborhood was in population at its peak, when that was probably a thriving local business that people would walk to. So I think that where that plays into the decision about the building and saving the building is that the amount of capital that it would take to save the four walls of that building is an amount of capital, not unlike the building that was demolished across 8th Avenue from this building, that would levy it really only salvageable through major private investment. And that is what we have seen at the corner of 4th and 8th on, across the street, is that $500,000 homes is what made that property redevelopable. Now, when we start asking what sort of a community purpose could this property lend itself to, we have to be thinking about those realities as well, and not just the structure. The amount of money that would have to go into it would render it most likely not a community purpose. It would be a private enterprise purpose. And that might be fine for many other things and many properties in this neighborhood. Many good projects are a reflection of that. But in this case, I think enough of us wanted to see this property, if not at all possible, this building, be used for a community purpose. And so that's kind of all perspective I think is worth having. As far as why not more engagement and more like facts about the building along the way, I can't speak to that because I can't speak on behalf of CPO, but I will say this, that you all will probably remember this property across the street from the park and the planning and the community dialogue that went into the idea of a food hub and the planning grant that MORPC was able to secure for that. When the plans were announced recently about the private mixed-use development that is in fact going to take place on that property, there were questions in the neighborhood about, oh, well, what about that food hub? I thought that was what was going to happen. Did whatever came of those conversations? And that's a sad example of planning and discussion and promises and dreams that didn't come to fruition, and it left people feeling pretty disenfranchised and pretty like I went to those meetings and I contributed to that conversation. I shared my hopes and dreams for that, and now it's going to be mixed use apartments and all these things and nothing like what we talked about. So I think that is part of the spirit behind not necessarily like making bold plans that can't happen because of the finances and because of the constraints on the property itself. So just with that, hopefully that lends some helpful context to the conversation about the DMJ.
Very much so. It paints a very good picture of how conversations turn, how plans go astray, and hopefully TPO is in damage control. Because after you talked about the structural damage and how it looks inside, I'm pretty certain that there's nothing that could possibly be done to save that, especially with the mold. I can only imagine. So I don't know what could be done. Do you have any suggestions?
Can I say something?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Is it Matt?
Yes.
I don't know. Was that Matt Martin talking?
Yes,
Yes, it was.
it is.
I mean, I wrote the Wyland Park commercial study. There's nothing in there about saying DNJ is not viable due to the one-way street network or being between traffic lights. I don't know where you got that from.
Study because of that conclusion. It wasn't even included in that study for that very reason.
Okay, but the study didn't conclude that. It wasn't even discussed in the study at all.
Why wasn't it included in the study?
I do not
It's one
know.
of the most prominent commercial properties in the neighborhood at this point, and it wasn't even included in that study.
Yeah, that's fine. I just don't want you to lead people to believe that the Wyland Park commercial study made that conclusion, because that is not the case at all.
I think that the properties that were chosen to be featured properties in that study were all zoned commercial. I don't think the DNJ is zoned commercial. I think it's zoned residential. It's a non-conforming use.
It's not sound right. And it's also just tiny. I talked to Matt about this earlier today about this because he worked on that study. And because I was surprised to see Chad said the same thing about the commercial study, said it wasn't a good site. And I was like, I was there when all that was, I don't remember that. I don't remember the community being consulted in any way about which spots were featured projects. Matt asked Carrie about it, and Carrie said there was just only so many features we could feature. You know, like the study had limited scope. This is a very small lot. There were other lots that were bigger. He felt featured, but it wasn't because of this was successful.
The point
when
is,
you think about the North Corridor, they just formed a whole special improvement district to serve commercial development of the rest of North Fork. And there's numerous places where my favorite bar is an intersection of 200 streets.
St. James?
Yeah. So
the point is, in a very recent study of commercial properties in the neighborhood, this property was not even included, and there are reasons why it made sense not to include it in that study.
I would say, as like all those technical things, as a resident, ideally, I would love it if that building could stay, but I would rather prioritize people over buildings. Yeah, and I would rather that be a space that the neighborhood could use, like a Zora's house or CPO offices, and have it be like financially feasible for whatever community purpose or nonprofit, as opposed to it, having to sink a ton of money into to try and save the building at the cost of being able to use it for a community purpose. I would, yeah, just prioritize personally community use for it over the structure itself, because what makes Wineland Park special is the people here and the legacy we get to leave by having a community space, and what that community space can mean, and the legacy of bringing people together and being a bridge in the neighborhood, as opposed to just like saving the exterior. I think that those cultivated in a community space are just a lot more important. Yeah, but if it's not going to like be financially feasible to be like a non-profit or community space, it will be very different. I mean, there might be, but it's not going to be a designated community space.
it's a valid. What do you think?
We can't hear you.
I just got this one. I was one of the enumerators going around doing this throughout the whole neighborhood and stuff. I've been through our whole neighborhood. A lot of these new apartments and everything, they're not even built up. Half of those are empty. So I'm like, why are we still building more things? That's not beneficial to the neighborhood. We met at my porch and like we were meeting. Haven't been in a while.
Yeah, this she runs the cheerleading.
Well, we
at the
still do.
Wildcats
We just took
near
a
the
year off because
neighborhood.
of COVID.
Right. I'm glad to see you too. Does anyone else have anything to say?
Any
Well-
thoughts?
No, I'm just gonna say.
Yeah.
Anyone
Okay.
else online who wants to have a word before I know we've talked
In
about this
this-
for a long time.
No, it's okay. We planned for a discussion. Anyone else?
question, if there was a consensus that we wanted to like intervene in some way, what power does the housing committee actually have? Like, we just
For Wyland Park as a whole,
Correct.
Pacific as a whole.
submit a recommendation that it not be demolished? Like, what procedurally can we actually? There's very little leverage in Columbus to prevent demolition of any building. If someone wants their permit, they can buy that permit, and after 90 days, they can do literally whatever they want. If they want an expedited permit, they have to go before the University Area Commission and ask for that. And in that case, we would have a little bit of leverage. But the only leverage we would have in a situation like this is just straight up advocacy, soft power, trying to talk to the board of CPO, trying to talk to other people in the community, and see if people would see it a different way.
Does CPO have any plans to discuss sometime in the future, like what type of plans there may be?
I really appreciate CPO, and I like Chad Kettler. We have a good relationship, but we had a total of 1 hour of information about this property in 5 years. So they don't share plans with us for their own reasons. So yeah, I don't expect to hear more until the next time a decision is told to us, which this kind of is.
With the Civic Association, we all maybe reading kind of happy meeting in that respect.
That's what we've been asking for the past 5 or 6 months, and CPO just doesn't seem to know that that's for a while. I mean, I think it seems like their decisions made out that the Columbus Foundation is very listening to them. So it seems like the decision basically is not on what direction we go.
So you say the decision has been made, it's basically going to be demolished, and that's it, that's all.
Yeah. But I appreciate everyone's time talking about it. I know that I talk a lot about stuff like this, but I appreciate
It's okay, Laura, if you're a member of this community and you have a concern, you're the chairperson of the housing committee, thank you for bringing it to our attention. Anyone else have anything else to say about it that's on Zoom? Okay, well, finally, we are, I'm just gonna give you, Catherine Cole could not be here tonight, so I'm just gonna give you a couple announcements that she had. One was the Columbus residents can get free flu shots, and the next one is taking, should you want one, the next one is taking place on Saturday, October 24th at the Columbus Health Loop drive-through on Parsons. 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. You must show your ID to get a free flu shot if you're interested. Next, COVID testing has been moved from the health department to the Ohio State Fairgrounds, the 17th Avenue entrance. I saw it today. Pre-registration and appointments have to be required prior to testing. You could actually call that same day and go and get a test. I know I did. I don't know if they still do it, but on Wednesday you can get the throat swab, which is less invasive in my opinion than that nose thing. You can call the testing organization to schedule it. No one will be turned away for an inability to pay. Here's a phone number, 614-645-1519. 614-645-1519. And Catherine says she will be hosting a virtual town hall at the beginning of December with her colleagues, and she's going to be sharing information related to individuals getting help for the holiday season, along with information on getting help with utility bills, among many other things. So when she has a set date for this town hall, she'll be sharing that. Other than that, is there anything else that anyone has for the good of the Civic or Wyland Park? Again, as this is probably our last outdoor meeting, it was a beautiful day for it. I'm so glad the weather,
I just said,
yeah, I'm so glad the weather cooperated. Absolutely beautiful here in the park, even at night. I'm tempted to sit here a little longer. but I thank you all for coming. If you haven't voted, get out and vote early. Absolutely vote though. Whatever you do, vote. And we thank you so much, and we'll see you all on Zoom next month.
Okay. Thanks, Tanya.
Judge Russo. Thank you, Sarah.
Okay.
Thank you, Tanya.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Miss Garrett.
Yeah.
This is Judge Russo. Thank you. Bye-bye.
So thank you for all the information.